This videotape is one in a series dealing with drug and alcohol abuse prevention. Funds for the series were made available by the State of Pennsylvania Governor's Council on Drug and Alcohol Abuse.
What did you learn in school today, dear little boy of mine? What did you learn in school today, dear little boy of mine? I learned that Washington never told a lie. I learned no system seldom die. I learned that everybody's free, and that's what the teacher said to me. That's what I learned in school today. That's what I learned in school.
Why is it that so many kids just don't care? But when they do care, what a difference it makes.
To me, it needs a lot of expression and a lot of movement. I always like to express myself, so therefore, by me dancing everything, it expresses me more. And then I said, if I could keep this interest going as good as I am in the top A category, then I feel that I can keep my studies up there too. So I used my technique I use in dancing, where if I practice it and keep my confidence up and know that I can do it, my grades will always stay up. And it worked.
Some people say you just can't expect to make school or work as much fun as dancing or playing ball. But we know perfectly well that some people, including the young, love their work and really get excited by it. But how can we cultivate that sort of interest and participation? Some educators say we can do it by making classroom and out-of-school relationships more open and personal. When parents and teachers are personally involved with their kids, the chances of reaching them are far greater. In the next half hour, we'll look at a number of approaches used by teachers and recreational leaders to raise students' involvement, both in their schoolwork and in their out-of-school activities.
My point of view is take your average high school, high school student, all right, who's in a history class because he has to be rather than he wants to be. Got bigger problems than that, got terminal acne, flunking out of school.
Right into the problem.
Right. And then he walks into a class and he's behind in, and the teacher's going to lay it on him anyhow. There's going to be some more bad news, and geez, look how it is outside. Damn, I'd like to be out there. Now that's the kid. You're going to show this picture to and say, now how come you're not interested?
maybe.
Al Morgan is a high school social studies teacher. And like many other teachers, he became concerned about his students' lack of interest in school. He wanted to develop better skills for reaching his students, so he attended a number of values clarification workshops.
The training I had at the beginning of this particular year just has, I think, broadened my outlook. It's given me a little bit more data, some more new approaches, some new ideas, some new ways of using it. I would tend to think that values instruction itself, values education itself, is responsible for changing my whole way of teaching. I was once a very traditional kind of a teacher, and I'm not anymore, and it's through that I've changed.
Values clarification is a widely used technique that enables students to share their opinions and feelings on practically any classroom topic. Like Al Morgan, many teachers are introduced to values clarification in workshops where they learn specific exercises aimed at getting students to discuss their values openly in class.
I would like to take you back to the year 1945, and I'd like you to close your eyes for a second and imagine yourself back in the month of August, the year 1945. And if you remember, that was the month and year that the first atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Now, assuming that you are a citizen of the United States, and assuming that you do love your country very, very much, and assuming that it is the year 1945, I would like you to search your heart and search your feelings and see how you come up with an answer for this. How would you feel about dropping an atomic bomb if you were ordered by your government to do so? How would you feel? You can either be Rebel Randy who wouldn't execute an order correctly even if faced with a firing squad, or you can be gung-ho Gary who would bomb the daylights out of them and drop one extra one for good measure. Who are you? Okay, if you have an object, you may now go up and place it on the continuum.
When values work is done in this manner, the teacher selects the topic and initiates the discussion. But the teacher doesn't judge the students' values and opinions. Her role is basically quite different. She's a guide and a listener.
Well, we have quite a variety, from hairbrushes to pens and pencils. Okay, let's find out how you feel. And I suppose that the best thing to do would be just to start over here. Denise?
I place my object directly on this end, Rebel Randy, because I feel that so far as in dropping an atomic bomb, it's wrong because it spreads destruction thousands of miles from where it's dropped, really, because radiation is carried in innumerable ways to harm innocent people who may not even be residents of that country that you're against.
Okay, fine.
Because I think it's wrong to kill that many people just because you want to end the war. If you're going to kill all those people, you know, why should you drop that bomb? It's so stupid. Because you kill so many people and they, suffer. Like, some of them, they didn't die instantly. Like, they just were burned and everything, and they had to die and suffer and everything.
Okay, in other words, they had a gradual way of dying and not going all of a
And
sudden.
why should the United States even bomb it? Because they went and built it up anyway, so they shouldn't have bombed it in the first place.
Okay, after the war, they went back and built the whole thing back up.
Well, I served pretty close to Gung-Ho Gary, but I didn't really mean to drop an atomic bomb. But we did have to end the war, because if we wouldn't, it might still be raging and more people would be killed than if we would have dropped the atomic bomb, which we did. If we would have just let it go and go over there, then we'd still be fighting. More people would have died. But the atomic bomb was wrong, because it did affect the people, but maybe something lighter would have been more effective.
Leslie?
I put my object right on Rebel Randy because the movie that I saw about the atomic bomb put a terrible expression into my mind. And even if we weren't that good, close friends with them, at least we didn't have to do such a terrible thing to them. And I don't even fight with my brothers and sisters that much anymore because I know how bad it could hurt them.
In other words, you are pacifistic when it comes to violence.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
This totally non-judging acceptance is a necessary first step toward greater student involvement. But valuing exercises alone certainly aren't sufficient for getting students involved. Teachers can use values clarification as a beginning. Then there must be opportunities for ideas to be tested and for constructive debate and confrontation.
My boyfriend was in Vietnam, and you could die any minute. Your best friends get killed in front of you. It's a horrible feeling, and just think of what happened in World War I. And here we're sitting, nice, comfortably in the classroom.
What bugs me is that like, the books that we have are just the American outlook on it, and they just show how the Americans were. They don't go into any kind of detail or anything. They have the Indians. The savages never wrote.
Yeah. Well, then go back to what we were talking about before, okay? Because, we were talking about writing a chapter, writing a book. If what you think, what you're talking about right now is important, and people have to be reminded about things like that, and maybe people can get sort of hardened maybe to all these horrors and things like that. It didn't happen to me, and maybe it's not really true.
But I mean, it doesn't affect their frame of reference.
Yeah, you got two things. What is it that you want people to think about? And given the option I gave you before about writing a textbook and writing a book, what is it that you want to do? What's the best way that you can think of to put something in the hands of people that they will respond to the way you want them to?
Okay, the textbook itself simply speaks of my opinion is the stuff behind it, what happened to it, how it occurred, and the physical violence that was involved in it. They don't talk about the people themselves. I mean, they don't talk about how the people had to, survive on eating, you know, other people or whatever it is, you know. I mean, you know, really desperate things that people, you know, don't believe. But they don't talk about that, so why should anybody bother to think about it?
Well, that's what
okay, maybe
to make them
that's what I'm saying.
It also, you give different ways, like you give history books, because some people really get into history books, whereas other people don't. They'll get into something like that. That's why there's that. Or you give pictures. Some people can really get involved by looking at things that shock the hell out of them.
Yeah, but you take the average person. Well, when you're going to start hitting them with bad news, I don't want to hear bad news. Geez, you want to hear my bad news. You know, I got bills to pay, the kids sick, you know, or something. My boyfriend just left me, or my girlfriend or something, that kind of stuff. I don't want to hear this kind of stuff. That's 100 years old.
But that's what I'm saying. It's not 100 years old. It's happening today.
Whenever I was trying to put the students into a situation where I asked them how they felt about a situation, or asked them to try to put themselves into a situation, I felt that I was going into some aspect of values. And probably most of the time, what you were able to see did not, I don't think any of it represented one whole kind of a thing from beginning to end, but perhaps a part of a constant ongoing process of evaluating things.
The way Mr. Morgan treats you and the way the material is presented, you're interested. I mean, like, and today, like, I was doing my work and I was getting so involved that I kind of forgot that you were here. And just the way he treats his whole manner, it makes you want to learn. And then pretty soon you get into it. You know, you start reading, and then you got your point of view and someone else's, you know, conflicting views. Here you are arguing, and pretty soon you're into it.
We've been told that your courses are some of the most popular in the school. Some of the best attended.
Yeah.
You think that's because of this change in your teaching approach?
Somewhat. Yeah, my classes are close up the first. We have open enrollment, and my classes are filled up usually first. Part of it is because a lot of students go for the teachers, and a lot of kids like me. Some of them like me because I make them think. A lot of them like me because they don't think I make them work.
Al Morgan has used values clarification to strengthen his own personal teaching style. It's a style that challenges students to ask questions. And when students are challenged like this, motivation and involvement flow naturally. We asked Charles Silberman why student involvement and interest is so important.
Kids who are starting school this year are going to be in the labor force in the year 2035. We can't even conceive what the society is going to be like, let alone what kind of jobs they're going to have. One high school principal I know put it, you cannot memorize the future. The only way you can prepare for the future is to have this sense of competence together with the capacity to learn on your own, the desire to learn on your own, in order to be able to cope, to function.
In order to learn on their own, students need to have some say in what they're going to learn.
Sometimes I've asked students, or I've given them choices, asked them what they would like to learn out of 3 or 4 different things for that week, or even in the cooking classes what they'd like to cook. And I feel that they feel then that they're more part of the program, and they are more motivated to learn the things, to do some of these activities if they feel they had a voice in choosing them and selecting which activities.
Well, the best thing about planning is this, about the students' planning is this. It's more funner, and it'll be better for the students because that'll make them want to stay in class because they can do it the way they want to do it instead of the way the teacher wants them to do it. Because if the teacher wants you to do it a way and you don't like it, you're not going to do it, and you're just messing up in school. I mean, you know, you fell in the class right there.
I think one of the obligations of an education is to teach kids how to take responsibility for their own learning. Now that's a cliche, but it's a very critical issue. Most teachers don't see their job as giving the students the skills to make them themselves, the teacher, not as important in the classroom, so that they can share the responsibility for the learning. Now that functions at a number of levels.
One is a teacher really needs to believe that she can learn from kids. And a kid really needs to believe that a teacher is learning from him.
There are many ways of interesting young people in learning, and interested students are less likely to abuse drugs and alcohol. School-based techniques for stimulating involvement are positive alternatives to drugs. But kids have lives outside of school, and involvement shouldn't stop at the 3 o'clock bell. So we need to provide them with constructive alternatives in the community as well.
To me, it needs a lot of expression and a lot of movement. I always like to express myself, so therefore, by me dancing your thing, it expresses me more. And then I said, if I could keep this interest going as good as I am in the top A category, then I feel that I could keep my studying up there too. So I used my technique I use in dancing, where if I practice it and keep my confidence up and know that I can do it and just go in that classroom and do whatever he tells me to do, my grades will always stay up. And it worked.
Joetta Morris is a high school student who started dancing several years ago. Now she participates in an Afro-American dance troupe sponsored by her high school and community recreation department. She practices and performs after school. And when she isn't performing, she's teaching younger students what she's learned. Joetta says the confidence that comes from her success in dancing has been a help to her everywhere, including her schoolwork. We asked Hattie Morris, a member of the school department staff, if other dancers have been affected in the same way.
I strongly believe that if young people are on the success level, then they will succeed. They don't have a failure syndrome. And so out of one thing other than algebra and reading and something where a lot of them felt like they were completely failures and they were failing, I thought, well, here's one thing that will give them some type of success feeling, that they will have accomplished something. And through this, grades have come up and attitudes have been changed, behavior patterns have been changed. Especially with the younger troop, we have a lot of response from teachers and from parents saying how their appearance has improved, hygienic problems have, have ceased, and their grades they've become more attentive in their work.
I think kids need a set of anchors to be able to deal with rapid change. I think that means, firstly, a sense of competence, a sense of being able to do things and do things well. We've lost that with the kind of change from rural hand industries to urban, suburban, high technology. Kids used to get a sense of competence by the chopping wood or whatever the chores were. Much harder to get that at home. Particularly important for adolescents. That's why athletics are so important to teenagers. It's why driving a car is so important. They're very easy to measure your own competence. You know whether you're good or not. That's why it's so important. And I think schools need to do that from kindergarten on, to give kids a sense of I can, of being able to do it.
Aikido really keeps me honest with myself. It's a good balancer. Helps me to settle down. If I'm getting ahead of myself, you know, during the day or whatever. I come into class, gives me a chance to relax, balance myself, and also pick up on what I've been doing during the day. If I've been, you know, fighting myself or whatever. It shows up in the techniques when you come to class.
Before I went to Aikido, I just had the everyday normal problems everybody has in school, in not only school and everyday life, but Aikido's taught me how to cope with them better, settle down.
I think the difference between the Oriental arts and the Western sports is that the philosophy is really ingrained in the Eastern arts. But again, it depends on the teacher a lot. The teacher should be interested in that aspect, and he'll bring it out. And it's more accessible to bring out in the martial arts. You can talk about things like harmony. I don't know if you could bring that out as easily in football. It's like, get 'em, you know, wah. And so that's okay. I'm not knocking firmness or that kind of gutsiness, because the arts have that too. But I just think it's easier in Oriental arts to bring out some of the philosophies.
The martial arts and dance are ways of bringing mind and body into harmony. Both create a lasting sense of personal competence. But there are dozens of other ways to develop feelings of competence. One example involves service to others. When kids help other people or help in the community, they feel tremendously satisfied. This was particularly true at a day camp for the handicapped that we visited. Here, high school students volunteered their time as camp counselors.
About 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I was a tutor for our school. And the man said there's an opening for 2 years ago for this camp. So I said, why not? I'll try it. So I tried it, and I liked it, and I came back for this year, too. My mom always asked me, how do I like it here? And I really like it. You know, I wake, like a plain summer day, you wake up in the morning. It's another summer day. You just go out and do something. But here, it's a different day every day, you know, to do the camp.
What they say, a cook wasn't the
Paul has grown to the point that his whole year actually was really a trauma, his academic year. And next year he's confident that he's going to have a much better year, an excellent year. He's grown, and he's grown by virtue of the fact he's given, and he's realized that someone needs him. And this is what one of the lessons the kids learn here, that I'm not taken for granted.
What do your friends that aren't involved in this think about it?
That I'm crazy.
Why?
Because I'm wasting away my days working at camp. Yes. I'm not getting paid for it. I could be at the beach. I could be working at a job. And I'm just wasting my time.
How do you respond to them?
I laugh at them and say, you don't know what you're missing by not working there. A couple years ago, summer was just aimless, and like now I come here and I work. I feel good when I go home. I may be dead tired, but I feel good inside because I know I've worked hard all day and I've been helping people. And next year when I start college, I'm seriously thinking about going to special education and getting my teacher's credentials. I keep my August available for day camp. So it's on my calendar in big letters, day camp.
We've titled this videotape, It's Different When You Care. And that's the message we've been getting from young people everywhere when they're deeply involved in what they're doing, in school or out. When what they do is important to them, when they really value it, then they're on the way to more learning and growth. And people who are busy learning, busy growing, just don't have time to abuse drugs. They're feeling too good about themselves. Their interests are elsewhere. And they've got to wake up in the morning with a clear head.
People get stoned and get loaded when there's nothing to do, because when there's nothing to do, you're going to get together and party. But, like, working here, like, I don't have time to party, really. Like, I went to a party last night, but I left because I was tired, because, you know, I'd worked hard all day. And when people are busy, there's not time to get loaded, because when you get stoned, you kind of, you know, your mind gets all fuzzy and you can't think, your eyes get closed, and everything's just, oh, wow, man, what's happening? Like that. And if you're busy, you won't run into those problems as much. People get stoned and get loaded for something to do. That's a fact. It's for something to do.